What's that? Oh, yep, you're live. Good. All right. Kia ora, g'day, welcome back. Not expecting anybody to be on this live because it is Friday and it is 12. Where's the bloody time? Nearly 12:30. So I'd set this to start at 12:30. Just on the back end of the work that I'm doing, or the videos work uh, in this YouTube space, and the follow up with regards to the request that came through earlier. So I've done a part one and something different too, something different from immigration, from blinking political blinking numpties, and all sorts of stuff happening in that space here in Aotearoa. Obviously, the impacts that just this some of, I guess, the negative stuff that's happening in and around the place. So I touched on last night just people protecting their own space and their own energy and things that they're looking to delve into and dig into, etc. And yeah, that goes for me as well. So wanted to follow up. Haven't done a part two of the video, the request. A while ago, I read this on part one. Kia ora, Joe. I was wondering if you could do a video talking about what selection and cycle was like for you specifically for both NZSAS and the Australian SAS. So what it was like leading up to, during, and post. I've done the New Zealand selection one. So that video's up. That's a separate video. I didn't do that as a live, but I'm doing this one as a live for a couple of reasons. One, people are probably at work on Friday, and then there's probably not going to be anybody on this live. So I'm used to talking to myself anyway on a live and expecting to talk to myself on a live. I've had a few good nights this week where there's been lots of commentary, and so, well, more people than I've ever had attend a live before or be on a live when I've been running one, which has been cool. And then doing this, the other part is doing this video now, doing it in a live format rather than a pre-recorded one and then coming back, so I can just do it blinking off the cuff like the first video was anyway. But before I do that, I should have mentioned, shout out, proudly not sponsored by Waimanuka, Joe Huddlewetter and the crew there at waimanuka.co.nz. Check them out. New Zealand's premium non-alcoholic sparkling beverage, honey and lemon drink. So get yourself some of that. Check out www.waimanuka.co.nz and put in anywhere in NZ free shipping with the discount code NZDF. There we go. There. That's the 300ml bottle, 250ml can in the background, 750ml bottle, the big bopper in the middle, and then again, 300ml bottle there. I might have a sip of that as I go through this live and chatting away, sharing my reflections, experiences on the NZSAS cycle. But before I do that, I just had a person from Australia who's been here on a holiday. I won't give his name. Somebody that I've been fortunate to spend some time with, been helping, I guess, try to provide some guidance, mentorship, dare I say, advice in regards to helping them with their prep for selection in Australia. And he's been here with some of his family, I believe, on a holiday. And anyway, he stopped by to hand me this. He brought this for me, this Special Air Service Regiment Challenge coin, Redback 1. I don't actually have one of these. Redback 1 for one squadron Australia on that side, and then the Australian Special Air Service Peace Challenge coin, done by who's the company? Buckingham Pewter, Pewter, in support of 964. So Buckingham Pewter there. You can pause it and have a look, and then 964 at the bottom. I've seen them pop up on my Instagram feed. I usually like a lot of their stuff. They've got some clothing and must be challenge coins and other merch and stuff as well with the things that they do. So shout out to the person that I've been lucky enough to spend some time with, as I mentioned, who took the time to get this challenge coin and bring it. He dropped it by. I was getting ready to do some work on another video. I was actually doing another video, a reaction video, prior to deciding to do this live. And he knocked on the door. So while I still had about probably 10 minutes to go, as I went and answered the door, left it running, and I'll edit that video later. Also want to shout out Charlie29. I've still got the New Zealand challenge coin that you gave to me. Obviously on loan, I think it was more so, because of there was some work that I was was penciled in to do, was with police force last year, but that fell through with regards to the flights and the way everything turned out. But yeah, I've still got the challenge coin that you gave to me, Charlie29. So thank you very much, bro. I'll get it back to you when I see you again. I should have given it to you when you stopped by and dropped me off that raspberry cream bun, but I've still got it safe and sound in case you're wondering if I've still got it. So anyway, that's that. I'll jump into my reflections on the NZSAS cycle. So cycle for me, the lead up to it. So I'd finished selection, went on leave. Leave would have been, I want to say we finished selection early November. So would have been late October we started, finished early November. I think that's my recollection anyway. It could have been the opposite. It might have been late September, finished early October for all I know, or for what I can remember. But I think we finished early November. We had roughly 2 months break. So people have asked, how long did you have off before you, or did you go straight into cycle in NZ? Australia is a little bit different, but I'll talk about that when I do that video. NZ, nah. So roughly had about 2 months leave over that Christmas/New Year's period. And as I spoke about, when I got back to battalion, my platoon sergeants and everything were really, or my platoon sergeant and then some of the other leaders, in senior NCOs and NCOs were really good to me. So I just basically recovered, rested, ate, and waited for leave. Went on leave with my darling, my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, and we had decided that we were going to stay together, obviously, and just do the long distance relationship thing. That's a bit of a blur actually in terms of leave. Yeah, wasn't, went on leave for a few weeks and then needed to be back for day one of cycle. I've spoken about day one of cycle in NZ before in another video where I'm pretty sure I was the last person to show up. I wasn't late, like from a time perspective, but it was a sinking feeling when I rock up there. My mum's dropping me off. We travelled from Manurewa, where my mum lived at the time, or the Rewa, I think people call it up in Auckland. And we travelled over to Hobsonville, which is where the unit was based at that time. So a bit of a drive to get there for anybody that knows Auckland, and travelling from South Auckland over to Hobby at that time. Man, that place has changed a heck of a lot. Sorry to divert right now, but I didn't recognise Hobsonville at all. I mean, I probably would have struggled to remember what a lot of it was like anyway. Hobsonville were opposite basically Whenuapai, where the base was. But man, there's so much that's just built up in and around that area. When I went there not that long ago, when I did the first walk and talk interview with Shubs. Anyway, we travelled there. When we're pulling up, sinking feeling for me as I look at the lads on cycle formed up in 3 ranks, and they're standing there waiting for whatever brief needed to take place, and then I'm just rocking up. I quickly get out of the car. I don't recall if there was one of the directing staff already there, but they were standing lined up outside the compound, just staring at the compound fence, because we hadn't, well, I definitely, at that stage, we hadn't been issued a key to tag in and out, and well, we wouldn't have been issued our rooms yet, because I travelled there and I had my gear in my mum's car. So anyway, we get there, I get out of the vehicle in uniform, and then get into the line, get into the ranks. And then I think not long after that, we got some sort of briefing, and then went into the compound, where we were in there for a lot longer. My mum had work that day. I've spoken about this before too, and so I wasn't expecting us to be in there that long. I thought I might be in there for a few minutes and then go out, get my gear, then my mum can go. Why I didn't take my gear out in the first place, I don't know. Probably because I didn't see any of the other boys' gear there. So they may have got there earlier and may have already got there, which is smart, and may have already got their rooms earlier, which is possibly why I didn't see any of their gear around then. And I didn't have a lot. I just had a bag with some clothes in my pack and military stuff. Pack and webbing, I think, in another base kit bag. Anyway, we go in there, and it seems like I think we must have been in there for quite a while. Now, I can't remember whether it's because my mum may have pushed the buzzer on the access gate, and probably in a grumpy voice said, "I need to go to work. My son has got his stuff out here in the car. He needs to come and get it." Or whether I put up my hand at some point where there may have been a pause or a lull in the conversation, and I said, "Oh, staff, could I please go and get my gear outside? My mum is waiting. She needs to go to work, but my gear is in the car." So I'd probably have to ask my mum what happened. I'm thinking she may have probably pushed the button, because she probably was getting ho-ha waiting fed up waiting for me to come out and for me to, what's this going on here? Oh no, it's all right. Fed up waiting for me to come out and get my gear. So anyway, I did go out, got my gear. I recall grabbing the gear, apologizing. Sorry, mum. She just didn't want to talk to me at all. Didn't talk to me at all. I think the only thing she might have said, the parting words before she left, might have been just close the door. So I grabbed all my gear out. I think I recall her saying, close the door, close the door. Before I closed the door, I was like, thanks, mum. Sorry, mum. Love you, mum. Bye. And then closed the door. And then that was it. She was gone. Uh, Drove off. Nothing else after that. And it made me, I think, in that moment, I think I did walk away having a little bit of a smile on the inside, at least anyway. I didn't want to be caught openly smiling in case I got told off by the instructors. I think I was smiling inside because I thought, holy heck, it was only a few weeks ago. My mum was crying after selection. This is one thing I forgot to mention too. So I think there was a stage there after selection whereby one of my older cousins came and picked me up in Auckland, where we were, took me home to where my mum was, and like I was looking pretty scrawny, skinny, and feeble at that stage in my feet, and I could hardly walk properly, etc. And I remember when my mum was there, when she come back and saw me, she started crying. So, yeah, she was crying. I think she really couldn't understand or fathom why I and or others would put themselves through what I guess she imagined we put ourselves through. So I don't know what she was thinking, but I do remember my mum crying when she saw me and the state that I was in after selection. And she definitely wasn't crying that day when she dropped me off at day one of cycle. She was blinking. I think if she could have, she would have kicked me in the backside and blinking, probably sworn at me and before she drove off. But she maintained she didn't yell or swear at me. She did use a very angry voice and told me to, yeah, hurry up and get my stuff. And she was late for work, so I don't think there were any real bad consequences for her because she ended up working there where she was working for more than a decade. So doesn't mean that it's okay that I made her late. But anyway, maybe I should have left earlier. But yeah, it was just funny, like having that thought. I was like, holy heck, what happened here? You went from blinking having a sook about about your only son and how blinking weak and feeble I looked to now you don't even say bye to me before you leave. So anyway, that was day one. Rest of day one's pretty much a blur, and I'm not going to be able to go by day, week by week, month by month for cycle. It'll just be trying to land on some of the bigger landmarks as best I can and talk about those from my recollections and reflections and have a bit of a laugh, I suppose, at myself along the way and or at other things as I go through. But yeah, that's day one. I assume we would have got issued our room keys and all that sort of stuff, key access to get in and out of the gate, briefings on making sure that we double everywhere, that we're not to be seen or caught walking anywhere, and they would have just been laying the foundation, I guess, from memory. My darling, my now wife, and I would just stayed the boyfriend girlfriend thing, and we had decided before I went on selection that if I did pass, so this was our conversation, if I did pass and if I did get accepted for cycle, that we'd do the long distance relationship thing, which is what we did. So yeah, after that, first course that I remember for cycle, as we get into it now, is the parachute course, basic parachuting course, static line, T10s, the roundies. And 1,000 feet jumps. That was the height that we were jumping out of. I had never jumped out of anything that high before, so to me that was high. But then at the same time, it also looked not that high when the doors are open and you're looking outside and you're seeing the ground, which looks pretty close. It was high, but it also looked reasonably close in terms of jumping altitude, let's say, if you can call it altitude. Those that have done blinking thousands and thousands of feet jumps probably wouldn't consider that very high at all. But anyway, T10s, roundies, static line, clean skin by day, by night, with equipment by day, by night. Lots of ground training, I remember. One of the main instructor that I remember for the ground training and stuff, at least anyway, and even up in the aircraft, basically sending us out the door, was a badged operator at the time. I don't think he'll mind me mentioning his name. He's commented on some of my videos, reaction videos and stuff in the past. anyway on this channel, Jim Peke. Um, he was a crack up fella, bit of one of those scary fellas to me when I was on cycle. One of those fellas that I looked at. You just look at certain people and you think, yeah, you don't want to get lippy or try and play up with this fella around. So I didn't. But at the same time, nobody was doing any of that sort of stuff anyway. At least not openly in and around and or in amongst badge members. I don't think any of us even did that behind their backs. We might have tried to imitate some of the instructions and the comments that they may have made or thrown in our direction when they were instructors and we were students. Excuse me, as a bit of a laugh for morale and all that sort of thing. Probably wasn't so morale boosting when you're on the receiving end being called a ball bag and a sack of shit and that's a pig's ass and all that sort of thing from the directing staff who are being very serious at that time when they're giving that sort of feedback. But it was funny. Excuse me. It was funny when we're back in our own space and just having a bit of a laugh and thinking about the day's activities and who may and or may not have been called certain names or done certain things. But on the parachute course, all of that sort of stuff, the ground training, a lot of ground training. I just remember being drenched in sweat every day. Blanking, I don't know how many reps of the para roll, the parachuting roll that we got in, but I can say that there was a heck of a lot. The progression from just being on the flat ground and doing those to then off low boxes to off higher boxes to then off the wheel, the swinging wheel, and then doing all of those to then jumping off the back of the Unimog to jumping out of the tower on the steel wire cable, but then going through the drills and all that sort of stuff. Progressively on the back and the mock-ups, getting all the footwork right, rear front, getting to the end, doing all your equipment checks, reporting in properly. Bloody hell, just the reserve shoot drills, your main shoot drills, the collision drills, and all the parachuting, blinking, rolling until the cows come home, basically as part of the training. But there's lots of work. I can't remember how long that course went for. Maybe only a few weeks. And people have asked before too. I don't think we did that many jumps. You didn't have to do that many jumps in order to qualify. So I think it would have only been like, I want to say maybe a dozen, 12 to 15, I think as the minimum, might have been the minimum baseline to get the tick in the box to be deemed competent at the lowest level, obviously. And the reason for that is because there's a whole bunch of other courses on the cycle. And so they're not looking to get you to blink in halo, hey-ho status with regards to parachuting on the cycle. There's a heck of a lot of courses to do. And I think at that time, we're told like the cycle of training was going to be around 9 to 10 months in duration. And so with that, I recall there being very little breaks or holidays or periods in between courses. Reason why I say that is because I think over the course of that year when I was on cycle, I think I only traveled back to Palmy to see, um, at the time, my girlfriend, but now my wife. I think I only traveled back to see her maybe 3 times. That's all her and I can really remember. I know at least one of those times I traveled with a couple of the boys that I was on cycle with who drove down. Really good guys. I won't mention that. I won't drop their names on here. That were senior soldiers to me. Yeah, and that had a vehicle and traveled down. So I jumped in the vehicle with them. They were kind enough to give me a ride back, and then obviously jumped back in the vehicle with them to head back up to Auckland. So I know I did that at least once at one stage on cycle, and then I want to say there was one or two other times. So it was either 2 or 3 times over the course of that, effectively a year, while we we're on cycle, that I traveled back to Palmy to see, my darling, doing the long distance relationship thing. So parachute course, we get through that. I really enjoyed it. I've shared other experiences about the parachute course. There were other people on the course that weren't on cycle, but other people that were doing the course, support staff. One of them was a female medic. And I've spoken before, she was at the front of the stick, first person out, I think, on our first jumps. And We did mostly side exit um, jumps when I did my course in NZ, and I think we only did maybe one or two off the back of the ramp jumps. Um, but she punched herself out the door, that particular female. And as I was back in the, I think I've shared before, I was like, if there was ever any doubt or concerns about going out the door, they evaporated quick smart. For me personally, when I saw her punch out the door and then land down on the ground and all that sort of stuff. So there was definitely no way I was not going out the door. So got through that course. Most of my landings were not the perfect parachute roll at all. I think I mostly landed feet, backside, back, and then a little donk on my head. So feet, bum, back, head, sort of like a just rolling backwards. I didn't have like a proper, well executed, perfect para roll. I know I did have a couple because I felt the difference, and it didn't feel as sore. My first jump, I remember my first jump, that and the landing being, and it was clean skin, like just your uniform, just your main chute and the reserve chute on the front hooks. That was my softest landing. The rest, it just they were, let's say they felt. I recall them being pretty solid, and thudding into the ground, especially when we started adding our kit, the pack and all that sort of stuff, and then your weapon slung and all those sorts of things. So yeah, but it was an awesome course. I enjoyed it. It was one of those things whereby uh, I started having recollections, memories from that black book that I looked at before selection as a 14-year-old, well, before I even joined the army, when I actually looked into it and saw the pictures and just been mesmerized by the images. And I thought, wow, yes, I'm about to start doing some of the stuff that I've seen in that book. From a military perspective, and by that stage I'd gotten a little bit more of an understanding of what the SAS would mean and the type of work and the training and stuff that would be involved. So yeah, it was like living out the dreams, in terms of what I had or what I was imagining as a blinking naive 14-year-old who knew nothing. So that was cool. That course came and went. Jim Pecker thrashed us with that course. We were doubling everywhere. I mean, it was good from the perspective of getting extra PT and everything in. Actually, that's probably a good point leading up to going to day one on cycle. Apologies for just sort of bad, but that's what you get when you go live. Because my mind will bounce around everywhere. Um, People asked how long recovery, how long break before cycle, what was my fitness and stuff like. I don't know that my fitness was really. I think recovery wise, I was probably close to 100%, from a physical, like putting weight back on, feeling better, feeling more energized, etc. But fitness wise, I probably wouldn't have been. I definitely wouldn't have been as fit as what I was before selection. Um, but I would have had a good base, a reasonably good base to be able to work from to build that back up. So can't say I did too much PT before getting back to cycle or going up to start cycle. But once you're on cycle and all of the, and that's what I like about it, that aspect about it in terms of having a double everywhere. I think there's real value in that. You get extra PT as a result of that. And although you may feel like, I'm just a blinking pleb on cycle. I've got to run everywhere, and those that are badged don't have to. It's like I never really thought of that as, probably again because I was so young. I don't think the senior soldiers probably thought anything of it as well, or that's what I'd like to think anyway. I don't know. Maybe I'd have to ask them. But as a junior soldier, as a young fella, having a double everywhere, the fact that I hadn't done a lot of PT over that Christmas New Year's period, I think is beneficial. So I think there's some good value in that sort of thing happening and taking place. And we definitely, let's just say, I definitely started to be building a fitness level back up on the parachuting course with having a double everywhere and just being drenched in sweat every day from that. Other parts of that course that I remember, actually, which is probably just worth mentioning as I think about it now, or because it's popped into my head. Part of the course, I remember them taking us into a large hangar where the parachutes were like sprawled out, laid out, and I think that's where the crew or the people that were employed would be doing the inspections. They'd also be doing the repackaging of the chutes and stuff themselves, and then having them so that they're ready to go back on the shelves, so to speak, to be used, whether for training and or if they needed to be used for actual jobs. So, but at that stage, probably more so for training. But that was pretty eye opening, and seeing all of that and the work that was put into that and the spaces that they had. So, another part of the parachute course as well, which was weaved into it, I think we got to watch footage of, I want to say it was Jamie Pinnell's in them and his part of his cohorts, not their basic static line course, but their free fall course. I think we saw footage from their free fall course. I'm guessing it may have been another course before theirs, but I'm going to say it was possibly Jamie's and them's free fall course. And I just, again, I was mesmerized by that too. That looks awesome. These guys are doing the blink and the bullet, blinking, streamlining themselves in the air, and obviously jumping out of thousands of feet high for those jumps, and using free fall shoots or the squares, if that's the right term. Can't remember what the technical term is for the free fall shoots that those guys were using. I didn't do free fall. But that was cool seeing that footage. So there were times when there wasn't we weren't just being beasted, but we did get to see other bits and pieces. I think some of that we saw some of their training in the, was it that hypoxic or hypoxia type training or whatever it's called? Can't remember the exact term. And I think that was part of their training too, where they're doing some assessments and that sort of thing, and testing their, what do you call it, reactions and maybe cognitive function and physical function. Anyway, I was just watching that. I think we all had a bit of a smile on our face when we were seeing some of the lads either make mistakes or be a bit slower than what they would normally be. But I assume that's just part of the training and stuff that was necessary and required for them as part of their course. But it was just cool. Like the parachute course, as physically demanding for me as I found it, that it was, and some of the hard thudding landings that I personally had, I loved it. It was a great course. And yeah, one of those things like Big Phil Campion has spoken about, that I think he said in the UK at the time, they didn't have it as part of their selection. It used to be once they were in the unit, then they'd be put on a parachute course. And then they had some guys for some strange reason who got through their selection, got into the unit, then were told that they're doing parachute course. And Big Phil Campion's talking about they had guys saying, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, wow, what the hell? And so yeah, those guys clearly couldn't stay in the unit if they're not prepared to jump out of an aeroplane. So they identified from what Big Phil was saying on the UKSF selection, and made sure that parachuting was part of their selection process. And so for NZ, obviously got a different selection and then cycle process. But I remember the parachute course being the first course off the rank for us on cycle, which I think that's a good place to put it, especially if people have got apprehension about jumping out of an aeroplane. So, yeah, not much point in carrying on with a cycle or doing all the other courses if you're not prepared to jump out of an aeroplane. So, anyway, that's that first course. Um, I won't remember the order, so I'll just blurt out and talk about courses that come to mind. I'll say the combat survival course, we'll just lean into that one. A few memories on that one. I probably won't talk, well, not probably, I won't talk about a lot of the details in that course because there's some stuff there which is definitely in the who dares wins category and definitely in the calculated risks space. Oh, holy heck, what's this? Sorry, John Smith just seen you. How long on average does NZSAS rear cycle go for? I'm not sure how long it goes for these days, bro. I'd say typically on average about a year. During my time was about 9 to 10 months was the word on the street, and it was typically more towards the 10 months at that time. So I'm not sure these days how long it goes for. I'd be surprised if it wasn't around the same sort of time. And then in addition to that, then you have a probationary period. Sorry, John Smith, that's if you're even still there. I just seen your comment. Oh, what the hell's this bloody little thing showing here? Close that. Oh no, it's just a new thing. No. So yeah, not exactly sure how long the cycle goes for these days. Rubber Kiwi's on here now. Morning, Joe. Didn't want to interrupt your flow. yeah, yeah, all good. Sorry, I only just saw that pop up down the side there from John Smith. So I don't know how long that was waiting there for. But anyway, I'll carry on. Appreciate you guys stopping by anyway, or anybody that has decided to stop by. Even if you're just listening and watching, that was my intent anyway. Me just being on here and talking to myself, sharing my reflections. Where was I up to? Combat survival. Yeah, I won't talk about a lot of details and stuff, or some details and stuff in there, I should say, because they're not necessarily operational secrecy, but they are. They're not for. They're not for this video anyway. They're for more private conversations, not on social media. But anyway, I enjoyed that course too. I would say, if I reflect on it, it's probably broken up into 3 phases, or that's how I would look at it. I think it was about 3 weeks long in total. We did have some people that weren't on cycle, again, like we did on the parachute course, that weren't on cycle, that were on the combat survival course. I think we might have had 1 or 2 Air Force guys. There might have been some other 1 or 2 other Army guys, and I think there was an overseas, I don't know what you would have called him, an exchange blanking soldier or whatever, from an Asian country. So that's my recollection. There may be 3 to 5 other, let's call them ring-ins for the on the cycle. And I think one of those guys, from memory, possibly on my cycle in NZ during the combat survival phase, I think he then went on to do selection and cycle and passed and got badged and joined the unit after. And then I think he might have also been one of the guys that went over to Australia as well and served in the Australian regiment. At that time, like after I was still in Australia at that time, but I want to say I think he was one of the guys. I could be wrong on that, but I think he might have been at that time when they didn't have to go through and do the selection over there at that stage. There was whatever was agreed and arranged and agreed between the Australian regiment and the lads that did go over, was done, and it is what it is. But yeah, I think he was one of those guys. Anyway, I'd have to ask him again, reach out to him and say, bro, was that you? I think it is. But yeah, it could be wrong. Anyway, 3 phases. First phase was pretty much in camp in Hobsonville for the most part, some theory stuff, uh, survival theory in the classroom, study and all that sort of thing. There may have been some assessments as well, some lectures on different types of interrogation methods and techniques, and things for us to be aware of. Repetition on, what we can and can't say, which is basically the big 4, and the rest is I, cat, Q. I can't answer that question. And making some of our clothing, at least the top half. So we were provided with some resources, which was sandbags, hessian, some twine, some parachute silk, and I think that's it. I think that's it. With just a whole bunch of those, a stack of sandbags and hessian to grab, a pile of parachute silk, old parachute material, the silk from the chute, which obviously wasn't going to be used or repurposed for parachuting, and then some twine and all that sort of stuff to blink and string it all together. Getting scissors and thread and use of sewing oil or whatever else we were going to use to stitch our clothing and stuff together was left up to us to do and to get and all that sort of stuff. So during that first week, yeah, you're sort of getting all those sort of lessons and things like that, and doing study, and then making at least part of your clothing. So by the time we left for phase 2, just fast forwarding a little bit, I don't know that there's too much more that I need to talk about in phase 1, but for phase 1, and then when we went into phase 2, which then flowed on to phase 3, we had our military issue trousers, our military issue boots, socks, issued socks, obviously undies, and then our upper half was just the clothing that we had made. So I want to say I think we had our uniform shirt as well. So I think we had a full uniform, and then any extra clothing. So there was no sleeping bag, no wet weathers, no thermals, no nothing else. Anything else that we had to make with the resources that we were given. So we all made ourselves like these big sandbag, you want to say hoodies. We Lincoln fashioned pockets into the front of them, like this little hoodie that I'm wearing, so you could put your hands into them. We basically just fashioned a big sandbag hoodie, for want of a better term. Had some lining in it with parachute silk. parachute silk material, and then had some had spaces in between it in the on the hessian so that you can stuff bushes or papers or anything else that you could find to try to add extra insulation to your body for your body because it got trucking cold at night time, more so during phase 3 than I recall on phase 2. Phase 2 wasn't too bad, and I'll talk about that when I get into phase 2 in a bit more detail. So yeah, you're doing all that, you're spending a fair bit of time trying to, Gucci up your gear as much as you can, but essentially you're just walking around like a blinking brown tussock bush, and you got your hood on your head to try to keep yourself as warm as you can. Uh, yeah, so that's pretty much how phase 1 was. Admin, study, and making some of your clothing, or the main part of your clothing, which is you're going to be relying on to keep yourself warm. Um, phase 2, we go to a place called Coromandel. Pretty sure it was the Coromandel. Um, and we started applying the stuff that we had been learning in theory in phase 1 into phase 2. Some other lessons, there were still a few lessons and stuff there. Sorry, in phase 1, you're also learning about agent RVs and contexts and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of theory stuff in addition to the interrogation methods and techniques, in addition to survival theory, in addition to making your gear. So really well structured, I thought anyway. Phase 2, still some small lessons happening, dare I say, on the job or out in the bush by the instructors, and then basically practically applying all of that sort of stuff, from shelters, from starting fire, from killing, gutting, skinning your food and all that sort of stuff, uh, preserving food, all those sorts of things, and then reiterating some of the agent RV type stuff. What else is there? And then part of phase 2, we got sent off. I'd call it now, as I reflect on it, I'll call it an introductory phase to being on the run, and agent RVs and contexts and resistance to interrogation, like an introductory dip the toes in, so to speak, and get a bit of a taste of what that is like at the end. So I think all up that might have been maybe a couple of days long. Like you've been going through that week, you're not getting regular food. There's actually bugger all food. You're expected to forage, hunt. If there's anything, there was the area where we were, there were no blinking wildlife around for us to go and hunt per se. Although we did we did go wandering quite far to try to find places. We set snares and traps. I don't know if anybody caught anything in their snares and traps. I know I didn't. My snares did work, by the way, for those that were asking. So, you set them up and then you test them to make sure that they work. So those things were working, but I didn't catch anything. So whether it's because I left too much sign, or just it was a rubbish area, or there was nothing, maybe there was nothing in that area, but didn't catch anything, didn't manage to snag anything. We did have some. So when I say we're going through the killing, gutting, skinning, all that sort of stuff, plucking things off certain animals and that as well, that was because there was a small amount of game, dare I say game, that was brought over, or that was there on the course for the collective course for everybody, including the instructors. And so when you're using that as part of the training tools to go through and do that, which is good, but then when you see and you and you wrongly think you're going to have a good feed, but you're not, as you see the lion's share of the food go with the directing staff, and then you see the scraps of the food being divvied up between the other 3-4 groups of your 4-5 man teams. you you quickly then have a little tear rolling down your cheek going, yeah, I'm not getting much food. Not literally a tear, but yeah, that thought of, yeah, we're not really getting much food here. But what you do get, you're grateful for, and you shut your mouth and you blink. And apart from when you're trying to eat what little food you do have, and you enjoy it, make the most of it as best you can. So yeah, then ended up going on the run for a bit, going through that process of what you've learnt in the first week, applying it in the second week, and then go in the bag at the end of it for a few hours. I don't know how long it would have been, but it definitely wasn't. It wasn't even 24 hours. It wasn't even a day. So you're in the bag. We didn't know that that was going to be the case, though. Like none of us knew. Oh, yeah, this is just. They don't tell you this is just an introductory. Dip your toes into it. That's just how I frame it after having gone through it and looking back and going, oh yeah, that was bugger all. But at the time, you have no idea how long it's going to go for. A lot of similarities crossover from selection in terms of not being given detailed timings or how much time you've got to get through all of this navigation on this day or to get to this checkpoint, etc. You're not told how long your resistance to interrogation introduction, I would say. You're not told how long that's going to go for. So you just suck it and you understand. You try to recall and draw on all the information and training that you learnt in phase one, week one. Some of the stuff that you've obviously, hopefully, either been thinking about or had some reminders on in phase two. And now you're nearing the end of phase two, although you don't know how long it's going to go for. And you want to make sure that you're applying it and doing those things that you've been taught. Let's just say that during that phase two, it's the badged operators. For the most part, there was probably some support staff there as well. By support staff, I mean non-badged members who are probably helping out as well with supervision of us when we're blindfolded and all that sort of stuff and in various stress positions. But let's just say that you you felt the presence. You felt the presence of the your captors uh, through either the laying on of hands and or through the laying on of blinking feet or boots. And it's super well run. It is very, if nothing else, again, I've shared this in other videos. It is a genuine reminder for anyone that you don't want to get caught by an enemy party or by an enemy force. Least of all the blinking types of enemy forces that coalition forces have been fighting these days, who are definitely not part of the Geneva Convention. So that aside, is awesome course. Not great feeling the presence of the directing staff by any means. That just sucked. That was miserable. But great in the sense of, and I think I might have spoken about this in other videos. If I haven't, I'll talk about it now. Great in the sense of just the coordination, the organization, the planning, and the delivery, the implementation of the training. So selection and cycle for NZ and Australia, in my opinion, those courses have been the best courses I've ever been a student or a part of from start to finish. They were so well run. Like if there was ever a stage whereby things were blinking a bit of a cluster truck, let's say, or not going as well, what I recall from the directing staff during selection and cycle in both those countries is that they never made it appear like it was. Um, it may have been chaotic in the background for them as the directing staff and as the senior instructors and course managers, etc., etc. But that never flowed over into the delivery or the implementation of the courses, at least from my perspective as a student on the course. It was just super professional, efficient, ran like clockwork. That's what it felt like. That's probably the words I'm looking for. Looked like, felt like, and sounded like things just ran like clockwork, like the way that they were supposed to at the time that they were supposed to happen. Whether or not that's the actual case, I'd probably say that there probably were some chaotic things in the background that we as students didn't know about, or at least I didn't observe, didn't feel. And things just ran, like I said, like clockwork. So, anyway, that course, the flow and the progression into the combat survival and the lessons itself, all that classroom work and theory, as well as the other bits and pieces that you need to do in your downtime, flowed into phase two. Phase two, you're needing to recall that information, particularly around some of the interrogation stuff, all of it, but particularly that aspect, because if you don't get through that phase, well, then there's not much point in you carrying on the cycle or flowing on to phase three. If you can't stick to the big four and stick to, I can't answer that question in that environment with that stress and the uh, the delivery and some of the things that happen in that phase of that course, then there's not much point in you going on to phase three or the third part, which is going to be more dare I say, a harsher approach to that type of training and the expectation. So it's just the flow on, that progressive overload, if I use that term, and the fair and reasonable approach to it, which I've always shared about selection and cycle anyway for NZ and Australia. Um, really, as and it's really only been as I reflect on it that I can see and connect the dots better and go, man, yeah, just the method to the madness, or what may appear to be madness to some people, is for me really on point and really relevant and done really well. So massive credit to those that would have laid those foundations before, and no doubt there's some modifications and adaptations that are in place now, and how they continue, though, I would imagine, to go about doing the things that they do. Um, so in there, finished phase two. Phase two finished with I don't know what it was supposed to be. I think I was more shocked and surprised at how low it was, rather than the fact that I was about to be pushed off this little embankment into the river. So, um, you in these blinking, well, at that time, we're chucked into these overalls, which just didn't fit us. Your blinking pecker is hanging out. They were there. I had a button-up one, and your blinking, yeah, old free willies hanging out down the bottom. Little fellas all shriveled up and sticking out. And anyway, you're going through all this stuff in that type of clothing. The last part that I remember of this phase two, you're still blindfolded. You sort of bundled off over, manhandled over towards this area, and you can't see anything. You don't know. And then all I remember is uh, my blindfold got ripped off, and then it's like my eyes quickly open. I have a look. I look out in front, and then there's just like this river down the bottom. So it's just like this little embankment, and then I'm just being shoved off the embankment into the water. It's not very, like, it wasn't very high at all. I didn't think it was very high. Didn't even notice initially that there was a directing staff in the river standing there waiting as well. All I saw was this dirty water coming towards me at a rapid rate of knots after I got pushed off. Landed in there. Wasn't very deep either. Bumbled and stumbled my way back to my feet. Didn't know what was really happening, and then just got told to blink and truck off over there. So moved off, and then we would have got briefed up and then changed back into our paru clothes that we would have had as part of the second phase, and then just waited before heading off for phase three. So phase three was in Waiouru. Um, we are in that blinking beautiful training ground out in the Waiouru training area, the Four Seasons in One Day place. And all I really remember from the initial stages of when we got there, few key things stand out. So we're still in the combat survival. We're into more of the escape and evasion phase now. So this phase of it, we know that there's Air Force involved. We know that the police are involved with the dogs. We know that an infantry battalion is involved. What we didn't know was that there were also some Fijians, maybe a platoon or a section that had come over, who were also part of it. I've spoken about the Fijians in a separate video before, but I'll get to that when it's time. So you've got this large hunter force, again, really well coordinated. The time, effort, the energy, the planning, the organization, the details that are put into these courses from the instructors within the units, again, hence why I say just sort of the best courses I've ever been on. And then you go on to do other cracking courses when you're in the regiment, but leading up to and just getting to that stage to hopefully earn the opportunity to be an operator within the unit, courses are awesome. Anyway, it's my recollection was that it was a pretty blinking cold and miserable night, the weather-wise, dark out. We got put into our little groups. Your groups got given a blinking hodgepodge of black and white maps on paper, which were to different scale. So you didn't get a nice all-in-one map of the area which you were used to, or at least for me in infantry in the battalion. You got this hodgepodge of maps, different scales, black and white, weren't laminated, so they weren't protected against the weather, but we did get some. They were in like those clear plastic sheets that you slide your A4 papers into. So we did have those maps inside those. So that gave it a little bit of protection. And then we're in our clothing, our uniform, with our sandbag blanket homemade sack that we've made with a pocket in the front and a hoodie. And given those maps, and then basically given the grid reference of where we need to be, or the location for our first agent RV, released out into the wild in that ugly weather, in that ugly, miserable night from recollection, and then you're on your way. You're going to be covering a few 100 kilometers over about sort of a 4 to 6 day period, I want to say, because on the end of that, you've got, you go back in the bag. You know that you're going to be going back in the bag, and the longer exposure to the resistance and interrogation phase is going to be taking place. So you know that you're going to be even hungrier now. You're going to be even hungrier. You've got to travel even further, and you've got to try to make these timings. And you know that at the end of it, you've got not a nice warm shower or bath or spa and a big feed waiting for you, but some more hiss huss hulsing to come, and in some stress positions, and trying to retain the information that you get from the agent RVs, while making sure that you don't divulge that information when you're being put through the ringer in the interrogation and questioning phases of it. So, um, yeah, lots of stuff sort of going on in the individual's minds and heads at that stage. But you're in a small group of people. You're heavily dependent and reliant on each other, like on yourself first and foremost, to pull your weight and to do your part, and to not let the team down. And then, knowing and trusting that you can lean on and rely on your mates as and when you need to, and that they can rely on you if they need to. And there are times, when some of that stuff may happen. It can get pretty cold at nights in Waiuru, when that's all you've got. And if the weather's been pretty miserable as well, and you're exposed and out in the open, and hard to try to find a place depending on where you are and where you need to get to within the time frames that you're potentially given, using your little button compass and your not to scale or different scaled black and white maps, which weren't necessarily up to date with regards to what's actually on the ground in some of those areas. So again, having the basics and the understanding of trusting your bearing and your paces, and being fairly confident and reasonably accurate with those, is, yeah, as what's the words I'm looking for? It might sound irrelevant, is probably the words I'm looking for. People might think it's obsolete. It's not. I would argue and say it's not. Technology's great. Garmin's are great. GPSs are great. They're not great when they don't work. They're great while they work. And the other thing, that's another reason why in units like the NZ and Australia, why they practice, with doing the basics well, because when all your batteries and other stuff fail, and or technology fails, then you need to have the skills to be able to rely upon, so that you can, in that case, from a navigation perspective, get from point A to point B. So, yeah, all of that stuff. See anything else really worth mentioning in there? Small team. Oh yeah, probably one of the things I recall, is we got bumped twice. I want to say twice that I remember, that caused our small team, our small patrol, to bomb burst and be separated for a period of time, and then have to go through our RV procedures so that we can regroup and get our guys together. The first time that I remember was during the nighttime agent RV contact. We'd finished that. We're making our way away from there, and one of the battalion units, or battalion patrols, infantry patrols, Hunter Force, was in the area. I think at that time, we weren't really sure. We didn't know if it was because it was blinking pitch black. It was dark as we couldn't really see much. We weren't 100% sure if it was soldiers or if it was one of the other um, cycle groups that we were with, going to the same agent RV. What I recall gave it away at that time was one of our guys in the team went to go and approach what he could make out, this silhouette, this figure. And as he got closer, he saw what he could make out, person turn, and then flicked what we assumed to be an NVG, because we saw the little flick come down, a little green monocle light, and we just went, run. So we all ran and just buggered off out into the bush. Blink, and some of us probably went, including myself, took a tumble down uh, a slope. It wasn't a big, massive mountain or cliff or anything like that, thankfully. But those that know Waiouru, undulating ground, you know, a few of us took a bit of a tumble to scramble and get away from there as fast as we could, or get away from them. I didn't feel like I was being chased. Burst off for however long we ran for, and then just stopped. Well, I did anyway. Stopped and just lay there quiet, listening out. You know, just waiting to see if I could hear any follow up, if anybody was chasing me. Couldn't hear anything in terms of where I was in relation to where we had just left. And then from that stage, it was a case of trying to get my bearings and then make my way through our own predetermined RV procedure, or rendezvous procedure for us, emergency RV, to try to rally with the boys, and then from there go to primary RV, secondary RV, etc., FRV, and all that sort of stuff to regather. But hopefully, if not at the emergency RV, then at your first or primary RV after that. We did regather, regroup, and then we carried on our merry way. And then the second time that I remember us getting bumped was daytime. We took a calculated risk. Daytime, and I think from memory, we took that risk because we knew that we had a long distance to cover, and we were ages away from it, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to make it in the time frame. So timeframes were given by the agents, not in terms of hours and that sort of thing, or minutes to thing, but timings to be there by, estimated timings to be there by, in terms of how long the agent would be there for, the window of opportunity to connect with the agent to get the instruction and information before we then move on. And so if you miss that agent RV, well, then you miss the information. You don't know where else to go. Essentially, you fail. So bit of pressure to get to those places where you need to get to. It's not like you could just take your time, and which I think people understand anyway. So we took a calculated risk. We jumped on a track. That track was big enough for vehicles. So our heads were on a swivel, looking around everywhere. We sort of spread ourselves out, staggered ourselves on the road, on the edges of the road. There were quite a lot of, even though it was pretty open, fairly decent, and a lot of tussock bushes and stuff around for good old Waiouru, and at least in this area where we were anyway. Started making our way, and then we saw a unimog, a unimog coming from out in front of us. I want to say a few 100 meters away, come around this bend, and we just blink and dived into the bushes where we were. We didn't look to run because the ground was pretty open and quite wide, I guess. We figured our best chance, so all of this weighing up the calculated risk to get on the track, if we do see a vehicle, short of being ambushed, like if there were soldiers along the side of this particular road, well, they would have got us cold, like we would have been done. But we didn't anticipate. We did recce and look at this area for a while. We couldn't see any sign of any soldiers potentially lying in wait there for us coming along, and we assumed that they would have thought, there's no way these guys are going to use a road. That's what you thought. Anyway, we dived into the bushes, or the tussock bushes, hoping and thinking to ourselves, like prior to, and hence why we did it, that with any luck, they either A, don't see us or didn't see us, and B, they either hopefully drive past us. Like they don't get it quite right in terms of where it is that they think that we are, if they did see us actually drop down into the bushes. So anyway, we're lying there on the side. I remember looking up, waiting for the truck to come along, because you want to try to get a glimpse to see if the drivers, or if there's a co-driver, co-passenger, whatever, in the front, in the Unimog, looking out as well. And if they make eye contact with you, or they see you, well, then you got to get up and start running as hard and as fast as you can. So I was watching that. I didn't see the driver. The driver didn't appear to look like he saw me or any of us, but it did look like the truck did clearly start to slow down before it got to roughly our area of where we were. So we figured, yeah, that like they know, they must have seen us, and we are going to have to get ready to run our backsides off very shortly. The truck slowed down, started coming up, and it did drive past us, past all of us. So it must have stopped maybe anywhere between, I want to say, 10 to 20 meters past where our last man was. So even though we were in staggered file and we weren't massively spread out. We were still reasonably close to one another. Jumped into the bushes. They drove past. Must have been 10 to 20 meters past. We looked back and we could see the back was full of soldiers. The tailgate dropped down and we just got up and ran. So and then you could see them. They lowered the tailgate down. Some of them were a bit keen, had their webbing on, weapon, jumped off, started chasing, yelling out to us, telling us to stop. And we were like thinking, I didn't say anything, but in my head I'm thinking, truck you fellas, I'm not stopping for anybody. Just keep running again. So we were split up, bomb burst, big cat and mouse, almost like maybe even hide and go seek type thing. Just running away, running for our lives because we didn't want to get captured. And so we got split up again. I ended up being pretty close proximity, so I wasn't completely separated. And this second time, I think some of the other fellas had a buddy as well. There might have only been one person in our group of 5 or 6 that might have ended up, or 1 or 2 of them that may have ended up on their own. And I think the rest of us, or a handful of us, ended up just sort of being in the same area. When we ran, we did all separate, but you just sort of, I guess, in a close enough proximity that you can see one of your mates, you know who's who in the zoo, and then you just quickly rally together as soon as you can, and then work things out from there. Emergency RV procedure, etc., etc. Try and get the rest of the boys. I don't know if anybody got caught in that part, but what I did hear was that some of the guys at different stages across our groups on the combat survival, some guys did get captured by the hunter force. And from what I heard, they got captured, got taken in for questioning for a bit, but then they got released again, obviously because the course isn't over. It wasn't a fail from what I understand. If guys did get captured, they would get interrogated for a bit and then they were released to carry on with the rest of the course. From what I understand anyway. I don't know how true that is. That's just what I'd heard. Reason I don't know if that's true or not is because thankfully I didn't get caught. So so I don't know if that is what happened. But speaking with some of the boys who did say that they did get caught, it sounds like that is pretty accurate in terms of what happened. If you got caught, bundled off, got interrogated for a bit, I don't know how long, and then Lincoln booted out again at another location, and then with what items that they would have had, and then would have had to marry up with the rest of their team and their patrol. So yeah, that was fun. Those are the only 2 times that I remember us having to split up and go through RV procedures for my team anyway. I think I might have shared in other videos how I bumped into one of the other guys across the river, a main river at the time, and that was probably not long after me and the other fellow that got bumped and separated from the rest of our team. And he said, "Oh, you go and I'll wait here." And I was like, "What?" So, but yeah, I did anyway because we could spy something in the distance, which I felt was worth the risk to see if we could go. And it just so happened that some of the other boys from another team from Cycle some of them were already there at that same location. So anyway, all's well that ends well. All's well that ends well. Got through that. We got to the final, if I fast forward, final RV, agent, pickup point. We'd done the final agent RV, and then what was to be our final pickup point several days into this and covering fair few hundred kilometers in the process. What happened? We got given the instruction. One of the guys was given the instruction at the agent RV, came back, briefed us. We made our way to where the pickup was supposed to be. We were at the right pickup location. The vehicle came, was it late at night. Based on the information that we received from the bro that went into the agent RV and came back and gave us the info, we were waiting for certain signs and signals to happen, which we didn't see happen, based again on what he had shared with us. So we didn't approach the vehicle. And so therefore we didn't get extracted that night, whereby it seems like we were supposed to. We should have got on there, as we found out after. but we didn't approach because we didn't see the things that we were expecting to see based on the briefing that we had had. Now, any number of reasons could have been that the bro got the brief 100% right and the person doing the pickup didn't do what they were supposed to do at the RV for us to give us the confirmation signal for us to enter and approach and then be extracted, only to then we would have been ambushed and blink and captured anyway. And or the what did I say? So either the information was right, we got the right briefing, but the pickup person didn't do what they were supposed to do, and or the information was again that was given was right, but communicated incorrectly, possibly from the bro that went there. You know, by the stage we're pretty feeble and hungry and skinny and cold and fatigued physically, mentally. So maybe it didn't get it quite right, possibly. Yeah, so there could have been those factors, I guess, in relation to that. But anyway, we chose to stay there in that area because we thought, oh, well, maybe that was the test to see if we were paying attention and if we did pick up the right signals and cues rather than just bowling on out there. So that vehicle came and went. And then we were there till like the sun came up by then. Well, not really the sun, but overcast, and it's daytime. Like you can see clearly. It's not nighttime. And then another vehicle came, another truck, and basically we just got told to hurry up and get in, get in the vehicle because we had missed that original pickup time. So, whatever happened, if it was a miscommunication or whatever, if we stuffed up, if they stuffed up, who knows? Either way, we got picked up eventually, and then we got taken in. We then got ambushed, and then that's when the Fijian party was there. We got manhandled off the back of the truck, off our supposed rescue truck, the pickup that the agent gave us the coordinates to, and then got blinking manhandled around a little bit. I've spoken about the palms up or the bums up story on a previous video. So essentially, if you imagine when we got dragged out, lying face down in a T position, hands out to the side, feet together, with your palms facing down towards the ground, right? We're in that position. We're waiting. The dogs and stuff and that are there, getting a little bit of a slap around. That wasn't too bad. The badge guys gave us worse than that. So it wasn't too bad. And then we hear this instruction in a Fijian accent language saying, "Bums up, bums up. Bums up, bums up." I said, "Bums up." So we're lying there thinking, what the hell? Because nobody's moving. We're thinking, bums up? What do you want us to put our bums up in the air for? Well, at least that's what I was thinking. And when I spoke with the lads after, a whole bunch of them were thinking the same thing. They're like, bums up? I'm not putting my bum up. So nobody's moving. Everybody's lying there. And then we're getting slapped around some more. I said, bums up. So we're still not moving. But then eventually, like I know I did anyway, okay, I'm blinking. Oh, I'm a bit sick and tired of getting like kicked and then whacked. So, okay, thumbs up happens again, or we hear that again, thumbs up, which what they're saying is palms up. So what they wanted us to do is turn our palms, stay in that position, but turn our palms over. So it's, I guess, gives them a bit more time to react, the people that have got us under watch, in case we launch ourselves off the ground, being the highly energized people that we were at that stage, and tried to disappear. But we didn't realize that that's what they're saying. So anyway, up go a few bums in the air, backsides. We're like, okay, well, stick backside up in the air. Hello, neck minute, blinking some more. His hus for blinking, for not listening. And then physical handling of, I said, palms up. And they're like, penny dropped. At least for me and some of the other boys too, when we've had a laugh. Palms up. You wanted us to turn our hands over so that our palms are towards the sky. Gotcha. But yeah, that's forever a lasting memory with regards to that. But it was good. Anyway, we got through that. We survived that. We survived the palms up, and then bundled back into the vehicle, and then taken for again interrogation and that sort of stuff. Where again we got bloody put into those ridiculous bloody overalls. The overalls I got, man, I felt like I was getting wedgied the whole time. blinking, yeah, they didn't fit properly. Some guys were lucky and had baggy ones. Some guys had ones that fit them well. Other guys like me, blinking, we just, yeah, were trucking ridiculous. So that's my recollection of that. You go through all of that stuff. It's a longer phase that time, and then at the end, like for the index, you're still not sure. Like all of this stuff is shared with you in week one as well. Like the directing staff, when it's end of exercise, will be wearing a white armband, and you will know, they will tell you that this is out of exercise, that the exercise is over, and then you'll be given instructions from there. So even then, you're still not sure. You're still wired to the big four, and I can't answer that question. But I remember being blinking wedgied over to what was then the final part of the course for that particular course, and the directing staff being there with the white armband. So I saw that, looked at him. I was still blinking suspect, blindfold removed, and then they proceed to ask you questions. And a lot of that stuff, that's where you can speak. Then you're no longer restricted to just the big four, and I can't answer that question. But it's also part of the assessment, because there's information and stuff that you've been given along the way of that final phase through the agent RVs and the information and intelligence that you don't have a notebook and pen to write down, that you have been expected and required to recall and remember, um, until such time as you get to a stage like that, or at the end of the course, whereby you need to recall and regurgitate as much of that information, if not all the information that you can, to the directing staff. And they will then, um, look at that and assess your aptitude and ability and retention and all that sort of stuff as part of the course. So when people, again, when I reiterate, you're not learning blinking high altitude, low opening, and all that sort of stuff and parachuting course on a cycle, when you've got all these other courses and things to get through, and to just try to get through at the bare minimum blinking competency standard required to get to earn the opportunity to go into the unit or into the squadron. So yeah, get through that. Must have been okay, because I was still there for the rest of the cycle. So that's that phase. Bloody hell, how long's that taken? Holy hecker, it's over an hour. And there's a sorry, there's a comment on here. Real deal, haha. Hey Joe, I was the subscriber who asked about the NZSAS cycle. Thanks for finishing off your reactions to this. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, bro. Yeah, yeah. You're one of the people. You're not from what I'm looking at in this email. I don't think you're the person that sent me this email. So yeah, you're definitely one of the people, real deal, that put comments in on one of my videos asking for. Oh, hang on, no, you're talking about the NZSA cycle reactions, eh? Yeah. Sorry, you're not talking about this. What's it? DMC. Respect to Rubber Kiwi. It's the Navy who do bums up. At least that's the rumor. I just seen that now. So yeah, anyway, holy heck, maybe this will be another 3-hour marathon. Anyway, I'm here for it. That's all that matters. And if there's anybody else, like some of these people, John Smith, Rubber Kiwi, Real Deal, Haha 09, DMC 7756, appreciate you stopping by and for being here if you're still here. So combat survival course is done. What else? What else we do? Demolitions. That was all done in Waiuru. I don't really have, like, what I can say is I've forgotten all, and it wouldn't have been blanking Einstein rocket scientist type stuff, but I know I've forgotten all the calculations and formulas that were being used for calculating and the use of explosives and the different types of charges for different purposes, for cutting charges, for like these boring charges that we'd laid, or that we used on different things, the different shaped charges that were being used, thermite charges, blinking, whole bunch of things that were being used, the different types of series or the connectivity with the det cord and the ring mains that were being used, and all sorts of other terminology in the demolitions course, which I've just forgotten a whole bunch of it right now. But what I do know is that it was another great course. I enjoyed it. I did struggle personally with some of the calculation stuff and the formulas. I had to do some extra work. I didn't fail any of the tests, but I was mindful that, if I didn't put in some extra time for me personally and spend some time with some of the brainier people, which there was a lot of them on there, that, I didn't want to put myself in an even worse position by getting to a point whereby I fail an assessment or one of the tasks or whatever, and then now I've got to prepare for the retest and have all that added pressure and things. So needed to put in the extra work beforehand. So trying to front foot that, which was good, and that paid dividends for me anyway, to be able to get through that course. And again, I'm not saying that they were super complicated, even though I can't remember them right now in terms of what was being used, but there were calculations and formulas being used, things to work out for the fusee, like the wick or the fuse when you light it, and then needing to be within plus or minus, geez, what was the time that we were given? I don't know whether it was between 10 to 30 seconds either side. We had to be with it. 30 seconds seems too long. I don't know that we had that much time between. So when you're doing the countdown from when you light the fuse and it's on, fuse on, and then you are walking away, because you don't need to run away from where it is that you've set these things. As part of some of the initial training, we were plus or minus, needed to be within a certain range when we're counting down. So when you get to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, it needed to go bang within a time frame. And same if you're counting down. If you go 10, 9, 8, and it goes bang, then that would still typically be within the range. So that's okay. And similarly, so hence the plus or minus. So, but I can't even remember what that um, was. It fudge factor, margin of error, be the words I suppose you would use. I can't remember what that was. But yeah, anyway, there was a margin of error which we were allowed for those moments when you're doing the. Uh, and I smile now because I know I just picture a lot of us having like that feeling in our butterflies in the stomach, but also that feeling and that smile starting to creep onto people's faces when you're doing your countdown. 10, 9, 8, and you're just hoping, and you don't know whether to start speeding up because you're wondering, you want to be as close to 1 as you can. I never was, by the way. And or you don't want to, and then you start slowing down if you've said 1 and it hasn't gone bang, and then you're like 1, 2, and then you probably have the director say, bloody hurry up, count normally, or they'll have a stopwatch. But yeah, it was a good course, even though I can't remember a heck of a lot of it. But it was all done in Waiuru at that time, and yeah, there's some funny memories along the way with regards to that course. What else is there? Like weapons courses, heavy weapons stuff. Those are good, like good courses. But I think, again, not I think from an infantry perspective, you got exposed to a number of those types of things. Not for me as a rifleman in Victor Company, I never fired a 50 caliber machine gun before. Like that wasn't at that time in battalion. During my time in battalion, that just wasn't one of the weapon systems that we had to use. The largest one was the 7.62 on the tripod, the mount gun and tripod, being part of the direct fire support team or whatever. If you were part of that, but that was usually heavy weapons was usually a support company role as well. So they were separate again. We didn't have at that time. It was rare, at least in the infantry sections at that time, to have your gunner with a GPMG or the 7.62 machine gun. It was just usually an LSW C9, which was just a 5.56 weapon. And the heavy weapons or the 7.62 fire support was part of support company, like mortars, like recon, like the assault pioneers, like SIGs. The support company had all these other areas as part of it. But yeah, on cycle and doing the different weapons and heavy weapons, that was good. Good course as well. What else? Medics course. Medics training was good. SIGs training is good. Actually, this one probably won't take 3 hours because yeah, they're just sort of just normal courses, I suppose. The SIGs course, I'll talk about there probably a little bit more because they were still running, and I don't know if they still are to this day, but we were running Morse code then. So you had to, that's when you were getting into learning Morse code, even though they made us do some Morse code on selection, at least for the first night. Like I said, it wasn't a course to learn how to do Morse code. Um, but on cycle in the comms course, SIGs course, we were learning Morse code. I was the SIG when we did at least parts of the patrol procedures course. And for the final exercise of patrol procedures as well, I was the SIG for that. So, and a lot of those messages were communicated via Morse code, via codes, via a code book through a 319 system. So you're not transmitting words, you're transmitting letters, um, groups of letters that formulate the code for words, if that makes sense. So, and transmitting those back to headquarters so that they can then have an understanding of, lock stat, sit rep, intelligence information gathered, what the intentions are, etc., etc. So that takes some time. But that was a good course, good learning that skill. But again, I've forgotten a lot of the Morse code. I'd say I wasn't anything spectacular when it came to Morse code because again, it's not one of those things whereby we're getting trained to the elite level of Morse code people that are blinking, spitting out words at holy heck, 20, 30 plus words a minute. Like, like no, not at that level. I might have been lucky if I was maybe maybe 8 words, maybe double digits, maybe just on 10 words a minute. Thinking, yeah, so not fast, nothing special or spectacular with regards to my Morse code anyway. there's there's SIGs guys, comms guys that were obviously up there and much more capable, competent, faster, etc. And the people that I was typically transmitting back to, the SIGs guys were, they were pretty onto it. But they were kind from the perspective of slowing things down for us when we're receiving them in the field. Again, because of that, I think that understanding that that's not our core role. Like that's my core role for that patrol, and I'm on this course and I'm learning this, and I've been delegated as the SIG. It is what it is. Like, and you take that and you roll with it, and then you try to become as good as you can in that, again, that compressed, condensed, short period of time as possible, so that you can at least meet the minimum competency standard and then apply it. More importantly, so like meet those theoretical aspects, but then be able to practically apply it in the job, on the job, in the field. So yeah, I was nothing great when it came to Morse code. Got better as we went along, but yeah, still nothing spectacular. Like the jack of all trades, master of none. Wouldn't even don't even know if I'd call myself a jack of all trades. I definitely enjoyed every course that I was on though. On the cycle, I'm talking about. Medics course was pretty, yeah, it was pretty similar to stuff that I had already done in battalion leading up to. The patrol medics course isn't something that you got put through on cycle anyway, at least not in NZ at that time. The patrol medics course, where they're learning surgical cricothyroidotomies and all that sort of stuff, which I got to do in Australia, you do in. Uh, they were doing them once they were in. We weren't doing that sort of level of medical training and that sort of stuff on cycle, not in NZ. What else? Weapons, demolitions, medics, SIGs, CQB, I suppose. We'll get into that. The counterterrorism, all of that bundled into that was the hand-to-hand combat stuff, which we did, which was knife fighting, ASBATs, unarmed weapon retention, pepper spray, and getting blasted with pepper spray. We had Tank Todd. Those that might know the name Tank Todd from here in NZ, from down the South Island. He was quite a chunky, round man, but somebody that was clearly very knowledgeable and handy, and dare I say, physically capable of inflicting a lot of violence, deadly violence, in a very short period of time, if needed. So he was the guy that was running a lot of that stuff and training for us at that time. I'm not sure if he's still doing it today. He could be, but shout out to Tank Todd. those were good courses. I enjoyed it. So all of that stuff was mixed in with um, the MOE stuff, so your method of entry, manual, explosive, etc. Uh, Also with all your room combat stuff, so the CQB, room clearances, all that sort of stuff. Included in that were all your different options, plane option, train option, vehicle like bus option, building options, multi-story, multi-level, um, use of helicopters, fast roping in, helo rappelling, all that sort of stuff. So roping and all that sort of stuff, again, were some courses, separate courses. The helo rappelling was a separate course. I think fast roping was a separate course. And then, when you're doing things like that, if I just bundle it all in CQB, you're bringing all of that sort of stuff together into that training environment and across different environments, from the kill house and the training ground to the city within parts of Auckland to just other parts in general with regards to the environments and things that you're working in by day, by night, um, and with all the bells and whistles on, with all your equipment, with all your chargers ready to go. That brought in the vehicles. So the vehicles as well, use of those going into targets, the ladder placement and use of those, like I said, across all those different options, from aircraft to buildings to trains to what was it, planes, trains, and automobiles, buses, and all that sort of thing. Multi levels, etc. There's It's just awesome. It's cool. Like, people that go there and have an opportunity to do that, or earn the opportunity to get onto cycle and to go through that training. I've never met anybody that's gone on to that training, done it, even if they've been RTU'd and said, "Oh, that sucked. I hated it." I've never met that person or a person that said that. Everybody that I know that's had the opportunity to do it, participate, and or has completed it, um, has thoroughly enjoyed it. Lots of hard work, definitely a lot of hard work, physically, mentally, like just some of the, what's the name, the pressure and strain of that type of work, particularly all the live fire shooting aspects of it and use of live charges and explosives. Um, yeah, there's a lot of work there. That's where you get, where we got blasted with the CS gas as well. So you get exposed to that going into the kill house, and then taking off your mask, and then having to start talking, and then next minute feeling like you're choking to death, and then still needing to make your way out through watery eyes and struggling to breathe out, make your way out through the rest of the little maze of the kill house to get outside in the fresh air, and then go through that process to blink and try to recover after being exposed to that. Um, Lots of, and it's not hazing. People have spoken about, oh, what sort of hazing did you have? And it's like, that's not hazing. That's just part of the job and part of the training. So you have an understanding. And the reason, part of the rationale for that is for us to have an understanding of when, if and when we use CS gas, if we have to use that on a live job and we've got civilians inside, whilst we're doing that to try to get the baddies and take them out, just we then have an understanding of what the civilians are going through and how and why they may be reacting. Some of them may be quite violently, because it can be super hard to breathe in some cases, depending on how much you get exposed to it. And so when that happens, to try to help us get a better understanding, so nothing to do with hazing, but to help us get a better understanding of what it is that they may be going through at that time, and or what it is that they will be going through because we've experienced it. Hopefully that makes sense. So to be, still be on edge, still be situationally aware, but there's no need to be blinking slamming them into the ground or into a wall, or blinking kung fuing them, doing a blinking sumigashi or whatever you want to call them, or a judo throw hip toss onto the ground because they're struggling to breathe. So yeah, they're really good rationales and stuff behind the trainings from my perspective. Again, I take it I'm biased with that stuff, but that's been my experience and stuff anyway. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Um, yeah, so that course, man, there's heaps in there, like I've just shared. Whole bunch of working parts, moving parts, and then culminating with putting all of that stuff together. Is, like I said, is pretty cool. The sparring your mates part stands out on cycle, but it's also good. I know I've spoken about that before as well. The That stuff hand to hand. You do some knife fighting stuff with their mates and stuff as well. Blunted knives and objects, all of that sort of stuff. Sensory neutralization and other techniques and things like that that are used. But the hand-to-hand stuff, like bare hand stuff, making sure, even though you're taught a lot of the eyes, throat, knee strikes, and try to quickly as you can, incapacitate or at least de-escalate the situation. Let's use that term by being extremely violent in a short period of time. Let's say to try to neutralize that or de-escalate again. Use of that word, the situation. You're not looking to take out your bro's eyes, whack him in the throat, or take out his knees, or whack him in the groin during your sparring. But the sparring is designed whereby you are expected to give it heaps against your mate, your brothers. And some guys got broken noses. Some guys, I think all of us got black eyes at some stage. Some guys got chipped teeth, and some guys got teeth knocked out. Thankfully, I didn't. But I definitely had a sore face, had a sore nose, and had black eyes. But we all tried to give as good as we got, and it's just part of the process. There was no, well, for me anyway, there wasn't anybody on my cycle in NZ that I looked at that I thought, I just can't stand this prick. He is a clown. Like, I liked all the guys that I was on cycle with. There's, like with anything, there's people that you hang out with more than others, and it was the same for them. But I can picture the faces that I can picture, white and brown, or white and black, whatever you want to call them. I can't picture anybody in there from different corps, from guys that were engineers, guys that were infantry. I don't know if there was any SIGs, senior soldiers to me. Yeah, I can't picture anybody in there that I didn't like, in terms of, like, I didn't hold any grudges or anything against any of those guys, had no reason to. So we were all striving and working hard, from what I could see, trying to earn the opportunity to get that Sandy Bearer and Wing Dagger and go to the unit, serve in the squadron. But you definitely had to try to tune each other up in the circle. So everybody's standing in the circle. The directing staff are there. Tank Todd was there as well. It was sort of, or he was always around, sort of overseeing a lot of the hand-to-hand stuff. But a lot of times we had the directing staff badge members that were there too, and they just call any two random people from the circle. Some guys might have been their best mate. Some guys might have been somebody they didn't really know, but didn't really have any grudges or anything against each other. And you knew it's just blank grit your teeth and blank rip into each other. So that's what you did. That's what we did. Go to the mess and have a bit of a laugh about it later on, through black eyes and some guys' tissues up the noses to try to stop the blood. Some guys' noses a bit crooked. Yeah, and some guys with some chipped teeth and some with a few less teeth. But it's all is good, man. I think it's I think it was a great bonding tool, because you knew from the perspective of, you knew that these guys are gonna, if you're gonna do that to each other, to people that you like, you're gonna fight tooth and nail for and against an enemy that is against you and your brothers. You're gonna do everything that you can. That's how I viewed it anyway. The instructors also had a knack of, if they felt like you weren't going hard enough, and if they felt like you were being too passive, like you weren't looking to engage enough, you were being too defensive or whatever, then you just go longer. They'll make you keep going, or they'll keep you in, and then they'll get somebody else in. Some guys, to be fair, like there's some guys there. There's one guy that I remember. He's a boxer. Maybe I'll just mention his first name. People from the military will know him. Know his second name. Kieran is his first name. Smaller guy, one of the smaller guys. Not a big, definitely not a hundreds club guy. I don't know. Maybe he might have been in the 80 kg bracket, but small and like short and lean. He might not have even been 80 kgs. He might have been mid to high 70s, maybe. So lean guy, boxer, really good boxer. So tuned a lot of us up and smacked us around, and is probably a reason why my face was so sore a lot of times, and why I probably had the black eyes that I had. But anyway, I think guys like him that had some pretty good level of competency when it came to just fighting in general, um, were my take is that I think if he wanted to rip in even harder, he likely could have, and there are probably other people there too. GT, I'll call him GT. People in the military will know who that fella is. Um, Tefaro, G is another word, I think, abbreviation that they would use for him. He is a big, solid boy, man. Far out. It I'll be honest, it just sucked. Some of the rounds that you had with people just absolutely sucked. You just when you're getting blinking ding donged around like the pinball, like the ball in the pinball machine, you just think to yourself, man, this sucks, but I'm glad we're on the same side. So for me with those guys, um, yeah, as painful as some of that stuff was, and dare I say is, because I assume that process still happens. Um, it's good. Like it's part of the process. It's good, and you're I don't know what the term is for it, but you come out the other end better for it anyway. Call it a growth activity, a team bonding and building and growth, individual growth activity. Because yeah, but you get in there, you do that. The instructors will make you go longer and make you go harder if they need to, um, and yeah, they're just constantly keeping the pressure on. But it's still good. Great courses, as painful and as miserable as some aspects are. They're well run. Yeah, so that's that one. Um, Obviously, all the patrol procedures stuff happens whereby you're culminating a lot of that stuff as well, from the SIG stuff that you've done into the patrolling aspects. That's broken down into a lot of different stages in that too. Um, so from your CTRs, or your close target reconnaissance, to your ambushing, to your contact drills, to your oh yeah, I already said ambushing, um, to then culminating all of that sort of stuff, your intelligence gathering, your thinking, patrol reports, and just all the different stages of leading up to the rehearsals, the orders, etc., etc. I've just jumbled all of that into one. I haven't laid that out in the logical sequence in which it would have been delivered and run on the course, just because that's where my head has gone to as I've thought about that particular phase and stage. So yeah, a lot of information, a lot of training happening in a short period of time, and hence why over the course of the cycle, like I said, I only recall possibly definitely one when I traveled with my friends, but really my wife and I can only really recall three times maximum over the course of that year in '99 where I traveled back to Palmy to spend some time with her. And that was literally just on a weekend, like leave Friday night if we could, get there, be with her Saturday, leave Sunday, like Sunday close to midday, before the main State Highway 1 route is what it is now. And it would take about 8.5, I want to say 8.5, 9 hours, thereabouts, to get from Palmy up to Hobby, back to Hobsonville, to base camp. So, yeah, it's not like I was loaded with money to be able to just, and I didn't have a vehicle. So, yeah, to be able to travel that distance, to spend some time, is great. But yeah, there's long distance relationship, a lot of phone calls in the barrack block, just speaking to her, and vice versa, calling her when I could. So it was just always me making the phone call, because it was easier that way for me to call her barracks than for her to be calling me, because she wouldn't know when we were going to be in barracks and if we were even in camp. Um, Cycle, yeah, and obviously I've already done the video, so I won't go into that. But the video titled "How I Almost Went to Prison Instead of, joining the SAS," that obviously happened during the cycle. I suppose the parts that, or piece that I can speak about, but I'm pretty sure I spoke about it in that video as well, is just the fact that that happened in the first half of the year of the cycle. So um, still a lot of work on the cycle to go. I want to say, I think it happened. I think it happened while we were during the CQB phase. So you still got all that room combat, all that live firing, all those different options and stuff to go through. And I'm pretty sure that's when we were on the CQB course, and that was in the first half of the year for how our cycle ran that particular year. I think because APEC was coming up, and then still having all of all the green roll stuff essentially to go as well on cycle the second half of the year, with the added my own self-inflicted but added mental burden and stress of I could be doing all of this for nothing. Like I could be going to jail in a few months' time, when this goes before the court, and then I have to rock up to court and then sentencing and all that sort of stuff. So is it, it never really entered my mind, is it worth it? What did enter my mind is I could be going to prison and this could all be for nothing. But you know what? I didn't care. I thought I'm doing this anyway, and I'm going to give it everything I've got. I'm going to lock in as well as I can, or focus and concentrate as much as I can on the job at hand. And really, the type of training and the course and the work that you're doing to go into a unit like that, you have to. Otherwise, if I made a mistake and we're using live rounds and I'm not concentrating or I'm being blasé, then I might potentially, heaven forbid, be the reason that one of my teammates on cycle or an instructor gets killed through my lack of preparation, my lack of concentration, my any number of things. So where am I going with that? I think in those moments with the course, I had no option. I gave myself, really, as I think about it, I probably gave myself no option to, I'm here to do this course. I know where I want to get to. And I had hope. I had hope that I wouldn't go to jail, and that I could, stay there and serve in that role and do that job. So that's probably the main thought. But yeah, I have been asked that question before. They're like, man, that must have been a lot of pressure. I reckon it likely was at that time. It's probably just because I'm more in a reflective stage of life right now as I think about that I probably, maybe I don't recall exactly how much pressure I may have been under personally. Um, but yeah, I acknowledge that I definitely know I was feeling the pressure, because of the thoughts that I just shared that I had, like I could be doing this for nothing. Um, but yeah, that definitely didn't cause me to switch off or from trying to give my best, in order to earn the opportunity to be there. So yeah, went through that. Um, People want to know, oh, what's that story about in terms of what happened? Well, yeah, go watch. I think that video goes for nearly an hour. So rather than me talking about that for nearly an hour, I'll just leave that there so people can go and have a look at that if they want to. What else? And then, yeah, probably the badging. So leading up to the badging ceremony, we all got handed the coveted sandy beret with wing dagger. Uh, we didn't get given. We weren't given a call. I don't recall us being given a call belt at that time. Might have been. Maybe we did get both, and all I remember is the beret. But anyway, I don't think we got given the call belt at that stage. Got the beret though. Told to, you know um, go away and shape it, have it ready, put your name on it on a piece of masking tape, surname, masking tape inside, and then hand that back in. And they would be obviously have those up so they can read the names and they would know which order they were presenting them to, those that were successful in receiving their beret on the badging parade. Got mine, or we all got ours. I just remember us in barracks, like big smiles on our faces, man. All of our faces as we were finally we were able to touch one and hold it. B, that it was to be ours, like it was our one that we were holding, that we were cherishing. And that C, we were walking around with them on our heads, like, whoa, like we were allowed to wear it and put it on our head because we wanted to shape it. You didn't want to have it looking like a blinking chef's hat just flopping around up in the air on your head, or looking like rubbish anyway. He wanted to look cool with your beret on. And so yeah, we did that. And then it is what it is. I got called back up. That's also in the video as well. So I won't worry about going into all that detail. Uh, yeah, and I didn't get badged on the day. So badging ceremony came around. I got the news the day before that I wouldn't be getting badged with my cohort after, after enjoying the smiles, after getting the sentencing result that I got, which was great, and then shaping it and everything like that. To get the news the day before, yeah, was pretty gut wrenching for me. But it was also known. So again, when I talk about the units NZ Australia being fair and reasonable, it was also spoken about and known that there had been guys that on the day of the badging got told nah. So that's how what's the words? That's how strict the process was. Don't think like the rug could be pulled out from underneath you on the day of the badging. So don't think you've done what you need to do, that you're in. But what was also shared is that if you do get to that stage of being handed your bureau, shaping it, etc., it is unlikely, but it could happen. And I don't know the person's name, but people did share an experience and say that there have been individuals, not many, but there had been some individuals that on the day of badging were told, yeah, no, they're no longer getting badged, and they never got into the unit. So how true that is, I don't know. But we were made aware of it, and I was made aware of that, I think, early into the cycle. So it wasn't like something that was just told to me the day before badging because of what was happening in my situation. It was something that I'd heard about, and that, dare I say, we had heard about before my situation happened. But yeah, it was pretty gut wrenching for that to happen the day before. Had the meetings with the various people. By that stage, I just already had a sook in my own head, and it's like, "No, I'm not coming back. I'm going to go to Australia." And yeah, and then that's what I did. But I was there for the badging, standing on the side. So people had invited their family members. You were allowed to invite your family members. And that's probably the other thing too. I'm glad that I hadn't invited anybody. I didn't even invite my now wife, but she was my girlfriend at the time. Um, Lucky I didn't, because yeah, I don't, I think my mum probably would have blinking got upset and had a few words with somebody for starters. Had I invited my mum, I probably would have only been inviting my mum and my girlfriend at that time. But glad I didn't invite anybody. Um, but yeah, so I was there on the badging, stood behind the family members that were there, helped out with just setting up the chairs. Actually, at that stage, I think Dale and them were back as well. Were there nearing the end of that year, because they were going to be starting cycle the following year, and I was told to come back round about halfway through the following year to join back in with his cycle and carry on. So I think Dale was there. Some of the other fellows were there as well. And so we helped out, set out the chairs and stuff for the families that came for the badging. And then I remember, yeah, just seeing the guys march out, small number of them, march out into the compound. The badged guys were across on the other side, or standing, or those that were, I guess, in country, in town, and standing there to welcome, or be there on parade and see the guys go up. And their names are called out one by one. They went up, received their beret, went back. Then they stood in the line. And what I thought was really cool was the badged guys then filed through. So they were in three ranks, but then they filed through one at a time and shook every newly badged member's hand as they went through the line. And I just thought, oh man, that's awesome. And I was thinking, damn, I missed out on that. um, I was also just thinking to myself, man, I just want to get out of here. Like that's the only thought I had. I just thought, I just want to. I don't want to be here right now. I'm stoked for the boys. Like I knew how hard they had worked to get to where they were, and to be in the space where they were, and to have earned the beret where they were, and be a part of the unit then, for them, was awesome. Plus, they're good guys, like all good guys. Um, yeah, I can't think of any of them that I wouldn't sit down, hang out with, have a laugh with, catch up with, etc., and chew the fat with. Excuse me. But I didn't want to be there. Like I was like, yeah, okay, it's finished now. Okay, can I go? That's all I wanted to do. Just wanted to get out of there, get back to battalion, and yeah, and then start making plans to head to Australia. So anyway, we fast forward. Uh, the badging ceremony for the boys ended. I didn't go out anywhere with any of them. I didn't participate. I didn't go. I think they had like a few drinks and stuff after. I definitely didn't. stick around in there anywhere with any of that. Saw some of the boys, obviously, shook their hand. Some of the boys, surprisingly, they didn't even know what had happened to me. So Bill Bestick, when I interviewed him, I think he thought that I had already gone. One of the other guys that I interviewed as well on the Epic Aotearoa podcast, he thought that I had already been sent away or sent back. So at least a couple of the guys didn't know that I was there at their badging, and that's because I didn't go and hang out with them after. It's like I'm not badged. Like what am I doing here? I'm not going to go to that function that is there, rightly so, in recognition and celebration of the achievement that they've achieved, and now being the newest members of the unit. I was like, that's not my space for me to go. Like I'm not part of that. So it's not surprising that they thought that I was already gone. But yeah, I saw all of that when I did go back. So I did end up going back to battalion. Yeah, I just started the process of making inquiries to the ADF. So we've done the lead up to cycle, done the during cycle for me, and now this is the post cycle. What's that? Just under 2 hours. So maybe it won't be 3 hours. Anyway, post cycle for me. Back to battalion now. Back at 1st Battalion, 1 RNZ. Oh, 1 RNZIR. Bloody wrong hand. Excuse me. Oh yeah, those that were asking, or those that might not know, that's my old core belt. Nah, can't fit it anymore. That's a flag, New Zealand flag. It's a little Velcro on the back that I got from one of the guys here in NZ. And yeah, and then just the poppy. So where was I? Got back. Don't know how long into, because I was just private Hawtai. I don't know how long into me being back at battalion, but then I was made up to Lance Corporal, 1 stripe. I don't know why, actually. Maybe it was maybe they're just desperate, short on people, because I'm still not. All I've really done is just done selection and completed the cycle. Passed selection, completed cycle, didn't pass cycle because I didn't get badged. So that's how I view it anyway. You pass cycle if you get badged, and you're badged and you go on to be a member in the unit in a squadron, which I wasn't. So completed cycle, come back to battalion, got made up to a lance corporal. Don't know how long from when I got back to battalion before I got made up to a lance corporal, but I thought, oh, okay, that's cool, that's nice. And then I was put in charge for a time, acting as a section commander for a group of new corps trainees that came through. A lot of really good, there were some really good fellas in that cohort too. There were a couple of lemons as well. One of the ones that I remember that was a bit of a lemon and a bit of a blinking, caused a fair bit of blinking discomfort for that for that corps trainee cohort. No, I won't say his name. It starts with S anyway. Those that were on that corps training cohort know who I'm talking about, and they would remember the name, because he was a reason that a few weekend privileges I took away from those corps trainees, which meant my weekend privilege was taken away as well. And we went and did pack marching and other PT physical tasks as a result of that individual who just, oh man, I don't know what was up with that fella, but he was a bit of an idiot anyway. At least during that time. He might have sorted himself out. Maybe he went on to be blink and, pull his head in and do well, like hopefully I did later on. But yeah, he caused some discomfort for that cohort. But that was cool, being having an opportunity to try to lead, encourage, guide that new bunch of corps trainees that came to 1st Battalion and came to Victor Company. So spent some time with them, enjoyed that. But that whole time I was just working on how do I get over to the Australian Defence Force. And so that was what I did. Travelled over to Australia to do the testing and stuff at the time, had phone conversations, discussions, dare I say interviews, with the recruitment ADF people at that time while I was still in NZ, still serving in an acting section commander role as a lance corporal. And then, and then the time came, a few letters, I needed to get a letter. Captain Pantling, that's another name I forgot to mention in my lead up to from battalion. Captain Pantling, really, Panda was his nickname. For those that knew him well, wasn't my place as a private to be calling him that, but really awesome guy. He wrote me a reference letter as well for the ADF. So did Bill Bestick, both, and I still have those letters to this day, the originals. So they wrote those letters. I submitted those, had the conversations with the ADF. They did say, you might have to do basic training and your what we call IETs, or initial employment training, or infantry corps training, um, if I want to join the ADF. And at that stage, I was like, yeah, I didn't mind. I said, yeah, I'm happy to. I'll do basic training and core training again, um, in order to get over there. That's how people have often asked me. They're going, bro, you're gonna do basic and core training again? Why don't you just bloody go back up to Auckland, you egg? and my response to some of those people and people that I've had the conversation with is like, bro, you don't know. It didn't happen to you, so it's very easy. Much like my reactions, it's really easy for me to sit back and react to things, give my 2 cents. But I try to catch myself and say it's really easy for me to sit back in the comfort of my armchair, in the comfort of my home here, and cast judgment and or make these statements of should have done this, should have done that, could have done this, could have done that. Um, I try to be mindful of I would have done this and trying to steer away from those because I wasn't in those situations. So who am I to bloody say this is what I would have done? This is what I think could have, should have happened. This is what I think I would have. I like to think I would have done this. Is probably ways whereby I try to justify myself in the reactions that I put out. But yeah, if something, my response to them, if something hasn't, because that didn't happen to them, they didn't have the conversations that I had, they weren't told the things that I was told, and then to have that not happen as per what had happened, like I reacted the way that I did, and yeah, and I bloody followed through on it. So, which is what I was always going to do. Like I would have followed through had the follow through on the other side taken place. I would have gladly followed through and had the extra blink and put me on probation for 3 years, if you need to. So that's probably one thing I forgot to mention. Those that go through past cycle in NZ, and I think the same for Australia as well. In the UK, I think it's similar for them, but they just have the selection, then they go to the unit. They have a probationary period. So, but that's like a year to 18 months probationary period. So not a 90-day. What do they used to have? 90-day probation periods and out in like Civvy Street and the jobs that used to do. I don't know if they still have that now, but anyway, 12 to 18-month probationary period as a new member within the unit, to continue. So you're still continuing to try to earn your stripes, because bear in mind, all that information and all those courses, like from the basic static line T10 roundy parachutes at 1,000 feet, all of that sort of stuff, you've just you've just shown that you are able to meet the bare bones minimum competency level. That's it. You haven't, you're not at the high levels of the operators that are in the unit. So that sort of thing, maybe puts into perspective the ongoing training and the exposure to the higher level operators, the more experienced operators, when you get into the unit, and just how far that climb is, and how long it keeps going on for once you get in there. So yeah, that's that. I then got the approval confirmation to go to the ADF, and I discharged the 8th of October 2000 in the New Zealand Defence Force, and started on the 9th of October 2000, that same year, over in the Australian Defence Force. And yeah, and it was awesome. It was good. So that's the end of that phase for the New Zealand selection. Leading up to that, done that part one in another video, and then this video this live for what's the New Zealand, my recollection. Bear in mind, that's nearly 30 years ago. So um, there's probably, well, feels like there's a lot of gaps in the stuff that I've spoken about. And some of that stuff I haven't spoken about in a lot of detail, with regards to the black roll stuff, with regards to the green roll stuff and the patrol procedures and all that sort of thing. I've just given some some broad points. Delved into a little bit more detail in terms of what some aspects were like for me personally and how they felt, etc. And yeah, I think that maybe gives enough detail or a bit of an insight, or at least answers the question from this person here who has said that they'd never seen me, or they haven't seen any videos from me giving my personal take, or personal reflections on what selection and cycle was like for me before, during, and or after. Um, yeah, that's a bit of an insight for the New Zealand side. So next time I come back, I'll do a video on the Australian selection, the lead up to the Australian selection, time during my time during the selection, and then post the selection, and then do the same thing with regards to the Australian cycle. See what I can recall and remember and dust off the old cobwebs or memory bank for that one. So yeah, I think that's it. Appreciate your fullest time. Anybody that's there, looks like there is. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Rubber Kiwi. Looks like you've had a blinking bunch of comments and stuff on here, bros. Navy, I read that one. Rubber Kiwi, what's the deal with sniper training and SAS? Does everyone get some or just for dedicated operational snipers? Oh, no. So depending on the unit, like you can get onto those courses as an operator within the unit. Anybody can get onto those courses. You might not. It just depends on the timing, though. So under training wing and that sort of stuff, when they've got courses going, if you happen to be there and you're not on a course and there's not a high demand or requirement for you to be ready for something right there and then, and you've got the time to do that, 12-week course, or whatever's happening, then you can request and get on it. Usually I found instructors within the squadrons are pretty good at getting their guys onto courses anyway. Like, there's a course coming up, yep, gonna whack this fella onto the course. So that's what I'd say on there. When you've got, does everyone get some? Everyone can put in to get on the course. There's other courses, well, maybe not necessarily sniper course, but you'll have marksman courses and sniper courses, which are different again. Both really good courses, but a lot of shooting involved. And a marksman course would be a good segue into a sniper course, but you can go straight into a sniper course and do things that way. Sniper training. Yep, I think that answers that one. Rubber Kiwi. Also, if a sergeant or corporal joins the unit, do they retain their rank or get reduced back to private trooper? Yeah, they get reduced back. So typically, it may depend on the sergeant's seniority and how long they've been a sergeant, and also how well they've performed during cycle. They may be reduced potentially to a corporal or a lance corporal. But more often than not, sergeants, corporals will usually be reduced back to a trooper, essentially a private, but they probably won't be there in that position as long. It's not like they're starting their whole career again, if that makes sense. So whereas somebody joining the army, going through working their way up, might have taken somebody, I don't know, 5-7 years longer to get to the rank of sergeant. If they get busted back to, I shouldn't say busted back, if they get reduced back to a trooper, essentially a private, it's not going to take them that period of time to get back up to a sergeant. And they'll probably be, if they were a sergeant, and they'll probably find themselves in a patrol commander role sooner, much sooner than, dare I say, a trooper, or somebody that's gone on to selection and cycle as a private and eventually becoming a trooper. But yeah, you usually get reduced back. It's usually just the officers that retain their rank in full. From what I understand, I'm pretty sure they don't get reduced back in any sort of rank setting, just the NCOs. Rubber Kiwi, mobility training. You're talking about vehicle mobility training? Not in NZ, there wasn't. There will be now, though. There has been for a long period of time. But yeah, if that's what you mean, mobility training, unless you're talking about physical mobility training. But yeah, mobility, vehicle mounted, or VM, typically the term in Australia. Here in NZ, I don't know, maybe they use the term mobility. And if they're talking about vehicles, then if you're talking about during cycle as well, nah. So limited. There's small boating and stuff, but not the full blow-in water operators course on cycle. And mobility in terms of driving different vehicles, yep, but not necessarily the tactics used from a pure vehicle mounted operational type perspective. Not during the cycle. It was more getting used to and getting your licenses. So getting your motorbike license, getting your truck license, 6 wheels and all that sort of stuff, which is pretty much just a vehicle anyway. But the truck and your motorbike and all that sort of thing. Um, oh, sorry, but bloody hell, I've gone off topic there too. That didn't happen in NZ, like not on the NZ cycle. That's I'm blinking jumped the gun there. That's on the Australian cycle. So um, yeah, did we do any small boating and stuff on the cycle in NZ? I'm going to say no. I don't recall us doing any small boating stuff on my cycle anyway back then. Um, and there wasn't any vehicle mounted mobility type stuff, if that's what you're talking about, Rubber Kiwi. How long are the courses on average, months or weeks? It depends on what it is. Like the parachute course was about 3 weeks, I recall. Combat survival was about 3 weeks in those 3 phases. CQB would have been a few months. Patrol procedures a few months. Maybe 2.5 to maybe 3 months in total. CQB would have been 2 to 3 months. Because all of those different working parts within there, like a course like helo rappelling and stuff like that, probably just a few days. But the nature of the courses and what you're doing and the different parts of them and how they interconnect is that it meant at that time that you were doing them back to back, and we weren't getting bugger all time off on the weekends to go traveling anywhere anyway. You weren't getting like a week here and there to take some leave and recharge and regroup and refresh and get ready for the next course. Pretty tight turnarounds with regards to the courses themselves. Typically a weekend. Typically you get the weekend, and so, like I said, because traveling from Auckland to Palmy, then Palmy back to Auckland just for essentially a day and a half, just I felt like I could prepare myself better. Again, probably part of the selfish mindset that I had and the desire that I had to want to be in that unit. Like there, there's no balance in that. When people talk about trying to find the balance and keep a balance, there is no balance. And when you're trying to drive for stuff, it's like me now doing YouTube. There's no balance to me doing YouTube. Like it's all in making content, reacting to stuff, and doing YouTube, doing my training, and then other things fall by the wayside. My wife got a full-time job. She works. Daughter's got her schooling and other activities that she does, sort of ships in the night type stuff. They're working, they're doing their thing. I'm doing my thing and focused in on what it is that I'm doing for me and the reasons that I want to do it, as well as potentially connecting with people that might stop by here. So, yeah, where my head was at for wanting to join the unit, it was also a conscious decision. Yeah, it would have been great to see my girlfriend, every weekend if I could have, but I wasn't prepared to make the trip. I wasn't prepared to make the trip every week, or the weeks where we did get the weekends off to go and see her every weekend. Some might say that's selfish. I just say, for me, yeah, maybe I agree with them, but it was also my focus and drive and my purpose for why I joined the army never left, like the whole time. Never left while I was in the New Zealand Army, never left while I was in the Australian Army. And as I've mentioned, if I wasn't going to be serving in the SAS, then there was no point in me staying in the army from that stage of life of where I was at. I was like, I'm just not. There's nothing else I want to do, so I'm not going to stay here. So yeah, that's what I'd say on that in regards to what we were talking about. How long are the courses? Yeah, the courses themselves just depends on what they were doing, or what it was. Yeah, hopefully that helps. But yeah, typically weeks, months. Some courses might have just been a few days. Rubber Kiwi, do they do the British style milling, throwing as many punches as you can at each other for a minute or two? It could be a lot longer than that. Some of that, Rubber Kiwi, some of that was involved in the CQB and that hand-to-hand stuff, but it was more not just aimlessly, and it wasn't just to the body. It was to the head and to the body, like trying to hurt your opponent, being aggressive with that, and trying to land those, as well as you could, like an element of defense, but not being just overly defensive, and the element of being aggressive and offensive. But trying to not be overly offensive, whereby you leave yourself exposed or open to to counters and all that sort of thing. Even though that's we were all trying to counter each other, we were also all trying to blink and be as offensive as we could as well. But yeah, it wasn't like a you never knew how long your round was going to go for. The rounds always varied in duration. Sometimes, if guys were pretty badly hurt, um, there was still the expectation, which I should have spoke about that. There was still the expectation to fight on, to stay in it. Like you're not going to get to just go time out on the battlefield. Heaven forbid you get to that stage and you're blinking down to hand, and you're literally fighting for your life in that sort of situation. So don't expect a timeout or the directing staff to step in and say, stop, 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 like leave him, he's on the ground, because that isn't what happened. That's not going to happen for real. They understand that. And they didn't let it happen um, within reason on that course. So obviously there are times whereby the directing staff did jump in and then stop particular rounds, particularly if somebody's like, dare I say, knocked out or significantly dazed, like concussed on their feet, staggering, wobbling. They get tuned up some more. Um, Based on what we know now, it could potentially be even worse. So there is a lot more. I want to say thought, planning, protective, health and safety measures put into play, put into practice these days, from what I understand, anyway. The standards are the standards for very good reasons, and they don't change them for anyone. They'd rather 0% pass than have a substandard trooper. Yeah, 100%. Like that's always been, at least during my time anyway. That's always been the requirement and the expectation from people going in, people that are already in, people that are applying, etc. That's always been the mindset. So, you know, reason that I'm sharing that and banging on about that right now is just because I think of that useless Andrew Hasty over in Australia. And people might have seen the post that I put up. Tell us what you really think. Um, just because to me it appears, based on the fact that he failed the CQB course, which is a major, that's like I've already spoken about here, just for NZ. It's very similar over in Australia, but all the working parts that go to that. And I didn't even delve into the shooting specifically, like the rigor in and around the shooting, the accuracy required for the shooting, the speed required to acquire the target, to do the shooting, to do the changeover drills, to then reacquire the new target with your secondary or your primary and secondary, and hit the target where you're supposed to hit it in order to validate and pass. The fact that he failed that and they kept him and they buggered off other, sounds like from the article that I read that I did that reaction to, and they rightly buggered off other aspiring troopers who failed the CQB course. They buggered them off and kept him. Like that's just, I'd never heard of it. So to me, from a personal perspective, it's disappointing because that to me says they absolutely lowered the standard at that time to accommodate that useless, treacherous Blinken spoof staying to get into the unit. And he didn't get badged with his cohort, yet he was still given a troop as a captain, put in charge as a troop commander. That part makes sense to me now, why, based on some of the articles that I've read, whereby he's having a whinge about they didn't respect the officers. Well, they probably just didn't respect him because they knew that he was got handed a troop as an unqualified, unbadged, failed a key part of cycle, blink and ball bag. Um, so yeah, it's disappointing to me from a perspective, from the Australian regiment perspective, nothing to do with the New Zealand one, that it seems like and sounds like there was a definite lowering of the standard, that they would rather bring in that Blinken Muppet for who knows what reason than hold the line, than hold the standard, to your point, Rubber Kiwi. So, yeah, disappointing. Really makes you think about how a single punch can damage your entire life. Maybe the twat's not really worth it. Yeah, it's a good point, definitely. But I think even to that, with all the like, not that it was a, well, maybe his one was a, nah, his one wasn't a coward punch because I was facing him when he threw the punch and cracked me first. I just was not expecting that at all. Maybe it could be considered a coward punch. Maybe my retaliation and reaction could be considered cowardly because I had to be pulled off after, and I should have, stopped after he was blinking on the ground. But anyway, that it does make you think in regards to, one punch can change people's lives, not only the person on the end of it, but the families, and also the individual that threw it. People have sadly died on the back end of people throwing a punch and doing significant damage. So yeah, really makes you think. All right, Rubber Kiwi, good comment. Did you feel like they didn't value all the effort you'd put in? So F them all or something else? Good question. I don't. No, I just felt lied to. That's really all I can put it down to. I think they appreciated everybody's effort that they put in, and I also think that they did appreciate the effort that I had put in as well. Reason that I share that is because in the video, well, hopefully I do. I'm pretty sure I do. I try to acknowledge the fact that they tried to convince me to come back. Not only there the day before when I met with the training officer and the training warrant officer, then had to go see the RSM, then had to go see the CO. So 3 separate meetings with these people, and each time my training officer was there, who was the person that I had the conversation with before we even got to the stage. um, and and I got the feeling that they really wanted me to come back. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone through those stages. And then when I was on the Hunter Force for the cycle, Dale and them cycle, when they were in that phase of their combat survival and the final phase in Waiuru, I got spoken to again, this time by the RSM and the training warrant officer were there in that part of Waiuru. They knew that I was there. They specifically asked to speak with me, took me away, had a conversation, and they tried to get me to come back again. So um, yeah, I think they valued everybody at that stage that had put in work, myself included, and they genuinely tried to get me to come back. But to your part about F them all, I did think, um, yeah, F them in terms of don't tell me one thing and then completely shift the goalpost and change it. So that's why I chose not to go back, more because not because I didn't feel like they didn't value the work that I'd put in, but because I felt like they lied to me. And I thought, if you're going to lie to me here and now, what's to stop you lying to me later on? That was what I thought. So that, yeah, stuff is, I'm out of here. So that's why I didn't go back. Rubber Kiwi, cheers, bro. Read and watched a lot. New perspective, hearing the information straight from the horse's mouth. Already extreme respect for the unit has only grown. Oh, thanks for the comments. Have a good Arvo live tonight or taking a break. I don't think I'll be doing, I haven't got any plans to do a live tonight. Probably depends on what filters through, what comes through on the interwebs. There's a whole bunch of messages on my IG that I've got that I haven't seen. I've got a few emails. There's some new comments and stuff on videos, so we'll see. Possibly, but wasn't planning on doing a live tonight. We'll see how we go. Maybe people are sick of me on the live. I think you're the only one here, Rubber Kiwi. I'd appreciate you being here, whether it's one or whether it's none. I'm going to be here anyway and yapping away. So appreciate yourself and anybody else that might have stopped by. I think there was John Smith stopped by and Real Deal Haha 09. Oh, and DMC was here as well. But yeah, that's the plans. What about you? What are you up to? That's what I should have asked. Excuse me. Actually, you have sent me some info with regards to the schedule. Been a dozen in and out. Been a dozen in and out. Excuse me. What does that mean? Well, you might have said that ages ago. No, that only just popped up on here now. Or for me anyway. Anyway, where are we? It looks like you are the only one on here. Or if that one that I'm seeing on the thing and the little profile thing means that that's you. Kids are off to dad's for the weekend. Oh, nice. Okay. Kids off to dad's for the weekend. Any plans? They're going to be doing anything specific? A dozen viewers today. Oh, was he? Oh, well, yeah, I wasn't looking at I wasn't looking at where the how many people. I was surprised to see that there was like over 200 something total, I think, over the course of the live that I did last night. So that was nice. But yeah, whether there's one, whether there's none, appreciate anybody stopping by or people that just might have a look at it later. At least this wasn't a 3-hour one like the selection one was. I'm going to be sleeping, noisy. Crack up. Well, enjoy your sleep. Have a good rest. And you won't need to be listening to me yapping away because you'll be sleeping. So yeah, look after yourself. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Laters, yep, ka kits, and people will see me on the next one, whenever that is. End stream.